Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome everyone to my Mindful Leadership podcast. And today I'm absolutely delighted. I've absolutely got him on board, kicking and screaming. I've got Brian Colbert here today, and we're going to be talking about his history and where he's at today, and lots of good stuff. I know I've known Brian for about 5 or 6 years. Little bit about him. He's the co-founder of the Irish Institute of NLP. He's a master trainer of NLP. He's a psychotherapist. He's a hypnotherapist. He's a best-selling author of 3 books, so I believe, and I've read them all, and they're all pretty good. They're all very, very good. He's a consultant. He's a corporate trainer. He's worked with the likes of Google, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo. He's been on a flurry of Irish and international radio stations, RTE, TV3, Today FM. He's a biz all-star, and he's probably one of the best mind coaches in Europe, and probably one of the best master trainers around, I would suspect. And I know he's highly recommended. That's why so many internationals come to his training courses, as I have on many occasions. So Brian, thank you so much for coming on board today.
Great to be here, Jason. Good to see you.
So my first question is, tell me about a little bit about your life to date and how you got into what you got into and how you started your business out.
Okay, well, I'm at a stage now where I've really come full circle in what I began doing. So the way I began, in the first instance, I was always interested in how the mind would operate, how people actually do and why they do what they do. So that was just always an interest for me. So at that stage, and you're going right back to the 80s at that stage. At that time, a lot of this stuff like hypnosis and mindfulness and all of this stuff was brand new. The Silva method, all this type of stuff. I was just exploring and finding out how did that actually work. And I had a friend that used to say, I'm going to go in and try out this stuff. If I come out, my brain is broken, fix it for me. That's the way I was thinking. Because, we didn't know at that stage how good it was or how dangerous it was or whatever.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time doing all of that. But one of the things, I was in business, basically, and when I would say I was in business, I was working in business. And one of the things that happened, I was really stressed. I said, I need to do something with the stress. And I started looking around at different stuff, and I saw hypnosis. I said, okay, there's a course in Cork at the Institute of Clinical Hypnotherapy and Psychotherapy, and it was in the independent newspaper. It says, if you want to manage your stress, do this course. I didn't know that the course was actually start your own business course along with it as well.
Oh, wow.
I went off, I done it. And so then I liked the whole idea of hypnosis. And then I started to go into practice part-time. So at that time, I was in business. Basically, I was a production manager in a direct marketing firm. Basically, I was doing, a jack of all trades, really. Basically, I was doing HR, I was doing the management as well, the operations. But ultimately, I started to do the one-to-one client interventions then during the evening. And eventually, I just got so busy that I had to say I have to make a choice on one or the other. So I said, listen, I know where I want to go. I know where I want to be. And the final conversation I had in the business that I was in was when the boom was starting, basically in Ireland. And what happened was that people were getting really busy, and it was hard to keep staff. Now, I had a way of managing staff, so that what I would do is I'd always overskill them, upskill them, and know that while I had them to be highly motivated, and then they'd move on. But I'd always have them motivated and engaged and thankful and all that type of stuff. The correct way to manage anybody.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I remember the managing director ringing me and saying, Brian, there's lots of people are losing their staff. What are you doing wrong? And I said, I'll tell you what I'm doing wrong. I'm working here. I'm leaving. So the bottom line is, if that was wrong, you know what I mean? There was something wrong with the ideology, with the technology, with the mindset. So I said, no. They were thinking all the time, that staff was something that basically, in order to keep them, you must be doing something wrong. I was getting productivity outputs in excess of anybody, like 300% productivity output. I was installing systems, ISO 9000, the quality systems, all that. And I was getting performance. So there was no question about that. And people were motivated. The thing is that people did leave, because they would leave because they were being trained as they moved along the path. And that was, to me, was a win-win for everybody. While they were with me, they'd be engaged and fully occupied. And basically, and as they were learning for themselves, they were moving up their own rungs, their own ladders, either within the organization or within other organizations as well, which to me is what it's all about. But that kind of pushed me into the hypnotherapy side of things. And so then I started, then I started doing that. And at that stage, then I started to look into NLP. It was a thing. I was really sick at one stage. I had a migraine headache. And I literally took to bed. It was just, it really caused me problems. But I'd been handed a book beforehand by my wife's business partner. She's a hairdresser. And she handed me this book with flowers on it. I said, well, not flowers, leaves. I said, I won't be reading that anytime soon. But while I was in bed, I said, okay, I might as well read this thing. I picked up the book, all these red leaves on it. So using your brain for a change. I said, I can't do too much harm. My brain's already broken. But I read it, and I was using your brain basically by Richard Bandler. And as I began to read it, I liked his irreverence. I liked the way he was burning sacred cows type of thing. And I liked his humor, which I said, so someone's actually using humor while they're actually changing things. And I said, that was really attractive to me. I started to read it. That was the beginning of NLP. From there, then I'd been doing the course. Basically, I'd already completed that course, and I met Owen Fitzpatrick, who was a friend of mine. And basically, over time, we just set up the Irish Institute of NLP. We decided we like this NLP thing. I noticed he was very competent, very good at a very young age. I said, how come he's that good so quickly? And I asked him, he says, well, that's NLP, Brian. I said, okay, well, then we need to do this. And we took it from there. We opened up the Institute. That was in 2000. And from there, we've been training all over the world, basically, and literally, the kind of rest is history. Insofar as from the NLP perspective. But one of the things that I was doing between all of that is that I was trained as an analyst, a psychoanalyst or a hypnoanalyst. And I knew there was something in that, but it wasn't quite right. There was something missing as well. Just like in NLP, I knew there was something in it, but there was something missing as well. And eventually that took me back to the work of Milton Erickson, Virginia Satir. And when I tapped into the Virginia Satir stuff, I said, now I found out what's missing in it. Basically, so the full loop for me, the full circle for me, kind of starting out as a psychoanalyst and really ending up as a psychoanalyst of sorts. In terms of Virginia Satir's work is analytical from that point of view. So that integrates really well with the NLP. It gives it the chunk that I feel is missing. It's full circle at this stage.
Wow, that's some of the stuff I never knew about you, actually, which is really quite intriguing. So tell me, where do you think you're going? Because ever since I've known you, all the courses that have been on with you is different. And from what I've understood is you keep evolving and moving forward and coming up with different ideas for it. Where do you think you're moving towards from now and in the future? How do you see the Institute evolving? How do you see yourself moving forward as well?
Okay, so one of the things that I think that we, as trainers for a start, or coaches, we owe it to our delegates or to our clients or patients to continually evolve. First of all, that's the nature of nature, is evolution. Either you're going forwards or you're going backwards. There's no standing still. But the real thing is to evolve, continue to evolve. So for that reason, I'm always learning. I don't believe in one discipline. I believe in an eclectic approach, in drawing from all areas. And that's why NLP appealed to me in the first place, because it looks at modeling disciplines. It's not even a discipline itself. It's a discipline, in inverted commas, about other disciplines. So I like to model and elicit and to find out other structures that work and integrate. And I've always done that. That's why I'll always do new stuff. I'll always keep evolving. I'll always keep changing. In terms of the direction that I'm going, very simply, basically, on a really kind of, it might sound like a lofty goal, but my higher direction, basically my mission, my charismatic vision or vision, if you want to put it that way, is world peace. That's my target, yeah. So now I know I'm not going to get there, but the thing is, that's no reason not to have it as a target. And the way I approach this is, and this is why I like Virginia so much, basically her process was peace within, peace between, and peace among. Okay, so, and that peace within is the part that I'm operating on at the moment. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is to get that inner balance, and to get, and I mean, not just for myself, basically, but for when I'm working with clients, basically to get that inner balance, inner peace, get rid of the conflict, stuff that even when you use NLP, it gets so far and there's a little bit left over type of thing, the meta programs, the imprints that are still there, getting rid of those so you get a balanced human being, a powerful human being. And when we're powerful and adjusted, then our distress patterns and then our reactive patterns, they fall away a lot more easily, or they're at least more manageable, so that we're more responsible, more responsive to our environment rather than reactive to our environment. So that leaves a human being much more powerful, much more capable and competent, and much more compassionate and loving and affectionate, which is what we need. But that allows peace within. And then what you
Mhm.
want is that peace between. When you're feeling that way, well, then you're not going to bark, you're not going to bite as much, you're not going to attack, you're not going to feel insecure, you're not going to feel all those things that happen when people generate conflict. My other background is industrial relations and conflict, and industrial relations and management, which is conflict resolution. My specialty is conflict resolution, conscious and subconscious, and this is this part of the merge of the both. And so this is about allowing people to be able to interact in that basis where there isn't that conflict, or they have tools to manage the conflict, and it's not coming from distress patterns, it's coming from collaboration, cooperation, rather than competition and restriction. So if we get that, then we can build units, we can build organizations, we can build groups, we can build countries, we can build entities that are literally supportive, generative, collaborative, and
Mhm.
peace orientated. And that's why I say I might sound a bit lofty, but the thing is world peace. Why not have the biggest goal possible?
Well,
I
that's a
see.
massive goal.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, even if I fail trying, which I will do, I will make progress. And that's,
Mhm.
it's, every single thing that you do in this stuff leads, it's a pebble in that ocean. And the more people that do it, you ask, where's the institute gone? Well, it's about creating more people like that. I've been very selective, and you may be aware, as you know, I've been very precise about who I've recruited into these programs.
Mhm.
Sort of because I know there's a level you need to be at before you can actually. There's a kind of discipline in metaphysics where people were literally over 50 before they learn the higher spiritual disciplines. Kind of now that I'm over 50 myself, I kind of understand some of that stuff too, or maybe I'm just old. I don't know. But those are just the some of the parts is that there's sometimes that you just need to be in a space to be able to add a dimension to your reality. And basically that's part of where the selection process is fairly precise. Even though anybody can benefit from the program, I offer the program for anyone and everyone. But when it goes up the levels, I become very selective. And basically, and that might be a distortion in my thinking or whatever. I think it's just this stuff is too good, too powerful, and too impactful to
Mhm.
mess with. So and as you know, we train our guys really thoroughly, probably
Yep.
more than anyone else is trained in terms of from the coaching process and profession. And we really give them, as you know, constant innovation, constant newness, it's constant development, it's constant evolution. That's what it should be. You should know or be at least further down the road than the people that you're actually helping, as much as possible. And you can't be perfect, but you should be at least working on it.
I find that absolutely fascinating. And thanks for that gift that you've given me, because it's really sort of helped me through some challenging and troubled times. I know last year wasn't a great year, but I know this year is better. But I was working on myself
For
all the way
sure.
through that. And I know when I first went on this journey back in 2014, I suppose it was before that when I was seeing jumping around on Tony Robbins' stage back in 2003. And I went back the following year. That's what really got me interested. And I was looking back through my emails today, and I remember sending you an email back in 2010. And I was looking at it as going, wow. And I remember working around the corner from you, and I sent you an email in 2012, I think, wanting you to come on as doing some sales training. I do remember that. I was literally 2 minutes around the corner from where you are. So delighted that I came on board, and delighted that I sort of raised my game. But we know that we're in sort of a challenging, adverse time. And a friend of mine said to me, we've gone through the last 5 months, which has been sort of the dark ages. And now we've come out of that. And it's sort of like the revelations, like everything is, we've all changed and moved forward. And interesting times that we've connected with lots of people, connected with our neighbors that we never thought we'd never connect with people internationally that I've had to do. So tell me about where you're at in how you've seen the last 5 months of this crazy time that we've had.
Okay, well, basically, from me that I'm more introverted than I am extroverted. So basically, I hate people. I just do it for yeah. So no, but basically, I can spend a lot of time without being in the company of loads of people. And when I do spend time with people, which I do enjoy, I have to go back and I have to go back into the cave. So when the pandemic happened, it took me a while to catch up to realize was something wrong. I never noticed, yeah, because I don't go out that much really. And when I go out, it's with my circle, they say, and that's a fairly limited circle, which is what the bubbles are.
Yeah.
So, I love training, I love doing stuff like that, but that has to be limited, and I have to pull back from it. So I enjoy all of that. I enjoy the connections, but the thing is, for me, a lot of stuff is as normal. It's not really different to me. Basically, I don't see huge differences. There's certain things like that, not being able to do certain things, but to me personally, it's no big deal, because I spend a lot of time in the background. I spend a lot of time working, researching, developing stuff, and all that kind of stuff. And that it all lends to being indoors or to being excluded from people. A lot of what I do to understand people is spent learning away from people, which is ironic, like, yeah. But it's the usual thing. It's the mechanic with the bad car almost. It's that. But ultimately, so for me, I can see the impacts on people. I can see the dramatic impact. Say for Teresa, my wife, a lot of the things anyway, that she really enjoyed, like going out, socializing, stuff like that, even going shopping, things like that. That's every bit of that has been taken away. And if you are that way orientated, if you're outward orientated or extrovert and stuff, that is horrendous. And what you're getting is people being they're carrying an underlying stress of overwhelm. And so what you'll hear, and how you hear this stuff, is people say, I just feel flat. I feel emotionally flat. I feel I just can't get motivated. I'm overeating. I'm doing this stuff. I'm just sitting and vegetating and stuff like that. It's because of all this bundle of energy that's not finding an outlet. And so some of them are rediscovering it as a beginning. It's, oh, look, this new thing that we're doing. We're in the second phase now, and that's where the danger is. That's where the mental health dangers really are. It's where those people are not given that outlet to get out and connect and do all this stuff. Thankfully, you've got things like Zoom. Thankfully, you have situations, say, like yourself, and you'd be outgoing, obviously, Jason, in that way, and you like to connect with people as well. That gives you your energy and stuff. And as you said, you're finding that you're connecting to people from all over the world, which is great. Like, if you didn't have Zoom, if you didn't have a platform like this, let's see, your sanity would be up for question, sure, because you need the connection. Yeah. So, and the thing is, as I say, it is 50-50 for people, really. Some people, it's kind of business as usual with a little few changes. And for some people, it's absolutely everything has changed. And how can I redefine and regenerate and recoup? Now, a lot of people are trying to produce from within this frame. Say extroverts trying to produce from within this frame. When what you've got to do not only is to produce, but to recuperate within this frame, to recover, and to realize that this is traumatic. The pandemic, basically, not the pandemic itself, as in the virus itself, the consequence of the virus itself is traumatic. And so for extroverts, they have to manage themselves a bit more, be a lot more compassionate, a lot more caring, and basically, and not be so driven to dive in and dig into loads of things. Just pace, pace, pace. It's so critical, so important. What's happening is that a lot of people are ignoring the impact of this on their physiology, on their body. They see the physical impact and the emotional impact. I would liken these things to death, basically, so that people are going through that process of trauma a lot of the time. So, but because we're all in it together, people say, well, it mustn't be a trauma, or it's just a bad day or whatever. This is hugely traumatic for a lot of people. You see people being forced to stay at home, working from home, which got its benefits. Everything about it is chaos. That there's, big chunk benefits and then big chunk crazy stuff. Okay? So like, people staying at home, having their kids at home for the first time, or home educating their kids and stuff, a huge trauma for them. It's where they're used to a busy corporate atmosphere and a group atmosphere, then they're just bound by this completely changed situation. But not only change, it's not restorative, because they may have two little explosions of two children going climbing up the walls looking for stuff to do as well, and they're trying to get the job done as well. That's the crazy stuff and that's burning people out. It's really important, like more than ever now, to pull and steal some time. Really, ironically, for extroverts, they have to incorporate some of the introvert behavior. And that really means cave behavior, which means they're possible pulling away, even though they're just because they're confined doesn't mean they're by themselves. It's that type of thing. So, they typically the extrovert will be keep talking all the time. So for the introvert, that's, oh my God, like, this is not what I signed up for, type of thing. But for the extrovert, the problem is is that they have nowhere to send that energy, but they also need to pull back, to find stillness, to find calmness, and then to redirect their creative energies as much as possible. They need that balance. The biggest people that are suffering are the extroverts.
Yeah.
And I know this, we're all a bit of both. Yeah. But ultimately, what we're talking about, extreme preferences.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a balance, really. Sometimes I'm really extrovert, and I love to be social, but I also like my own space as well, which I've learned to do. I probably learned to do that when I was in New Zealand, staring at all these wonderful mountains and lakes, and I just went in myself because that sort of stuff just really sort of creates my calm and also creates my creativity. That's why I go running up into the mountains nowadays, and I get that area of peace and calm. But the question that I'd like to pose to you, Brian, is, and I probably know the answer already, but I'm going to give it to you, Eddie. I was watching this documentary the other week, and I posed this question to everyone, and it's all to do with this farm out in Wales, and all of the bands used to go there. Led Zeppelin went there, and they could produce the best album that they ever produced, and then Queen went there, and they did Bohemian Rhapsody, and then Oasis and Stone Roses, and all through the 90s, Coldplay went there, and they produced the best place. And the reason why they did that, they were completely isolated, and the bands, as bands do, they just went off and went a bit mad and did what, but they were really creative, and they had that time and effort and that space to produce what they ever had to produce. So what's your creative space, and how do you use it? And tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, my creative space, well, first of all, that makes a lot of sense that they would do that. But because what happens, remember, if you confine activity, especially, remember when you said you find your inner calm by running, they're still moving. That's typical extrovert behavior, that they still move while they're calming. Yeah. So it's a little bit like the dolphin, the brain is one brain's asleep type of thing, the other's still awake, that type of stuff. So, but these guys, if you put them into that context, then their creative juices are going to just fire off completely because they're not doing the usual physical things. Yeah. So the energy has to come somewhere. So for me, though, for me to be creative and to stimulate that sort of creative part of me, basically that is always about researching or reading. It's always about learning. That's my drug, So, and what I will do is I will read. Typically, I might read about 10 books at once. So I love the idea, the clash of ideas, or the way the brain tries to figure out what the hell am I actually trying to do. Is concept. So, and what happens then is that it produces and generates stuff. Equally well, I like to play with other states of consciousness, So a lot of my, and I kind of borrow from my sleep. For a lot of people, they sleep in bed. For a lot of the time, what I do is go into theta consciousness in bed. And basically, sometimes it happens spontaneously, but that stuff is where the flow of ideas can literally start racing through inside your mind. And I like to just indulge in that and find out where it actually takes me. So I have little rituals that I use. The grounded rituals are, basically just gathering knowledge together, whether that's through video or whether it's through books or whatever, and from multiple sources at once, and to try and find mix and match. And by the way, I think it was Michelangelo on that as well. And basically, they used to just pull it from different areas. And I just like that. I've always done it. I just like that idea of it. It's the whole eclectic nature of the universe. There's patterns everywhere. So I like, rather than finding a pattern, I like the pattern to present itself to me, basically through literally just that kind of journey. So I do that type of stuff. Then the downtime, literally, I will get my downtime. I'm not a good gardener by any manner of means, but if I spend time out, in the garden type of thing, then I get the incubation period. That's what happens then, is that while I'm chilling, while I'm relaxing, the ideas start to fire again. And I'm pretty good at, the kids often say to me that how can you do what you do? Like, you can go onto a plane, within 2 seconds, you're asleep. The reality is, I'm not asleep. I go into a deep altered state. That's what I do automatically. Sometimes I'll slip to sleep from there, but generally I know how to go into a deep state. I like to do those type of things. That gives the brain downtime. When the brain gets downtime, then it starts to regenerate. A lot of people don't realize that when you give it that really deep quality downtime, all the creative juices literally get re-stimulated. It's not as if you have to climb back up. It's the fact that if you impose nothing on yourself for a good period of time, your brain will go on fire, just like those guys, all the musicians. Actually, your brain just has to reboot in that way. The trick is to be brave enough to give it the downtime, still time, to let it reboot and reaccelerate. Rather than what we do is we take a little bit of a break, then we move on. A little bit of a break, move on, which is horrendous and unhealthy.
Wow, that's really cool. And a lot of people I've been speaking to recently also have that, and as a bit of magic. It's like a fairy dust that you're sprinkling a bit of magic. I was watching a TV show the other days on Netflix, one of the many things that I watch every now and again. I can't remember the name of the movie now, but what they did, they had these special pills. It wasn't limitless, it was something like that, but they used to twist it and put it in their mouth, and then they had a superpower for 5 minutes, and they used these superpowers, extra strength and visibility or flight or whatever it might be, but they had to time it on their watch, and then after that it sort of slowed down and just dissipated and went away. What would you have as a superpower? How would you use that superpower?
Okay, so what would it be, and what would be the superpower that I would like to have? Basically, I suppose the ability to be able to move through time and space, basically in any form. So basically, so really shape shifting is really on top of me. That'd be the one that I'd use, because then you could study and learn and have fun as well. Like, so basically, I'd like the idea of morphing into different realities. I just love that idea. So that would be my superpower. And that's the stuff that really intrigues me anyway. It's the idea of different worlds. I've always been interested in different dimensions, different realities, different worlds, and we all have them. Each person has a different world, a different map. But really understanding how to get into someone else's map of the world, that's my job. It's what I do. So I see having the superpower to be able to do it fully, completely, I'd be happy out.
Happy days. Yeah, I like that. I really like that. If you were to give something back to, I wouldn't say back to yourself when you're 23, but back to those people in their 20s that are maybe struggling, or maybe having to want something just to enrich their lives, what would you give them as a gift, just to say, this is a gift, this is what you can possibly do if you just follow this one step, and then it's down to you to move on forward?
Well, the biggest thing, what I would say is that the simplest, the biggest, the quickest, the easiest thing to do is to make happiness a priority. That's it. Like, so that to make even just every single day that your first priority is being happier. Okay. Just so that, and you're putting yourself first, deliberately self first. Say, okay, how can I make myself happier today? It doesn't mean happy, but happier. So that every day you're doing at least one thing that you just changing the frame, making sure that you're generating good feelings, learning how to run good feelings, learning how to build a good positive state. Because remember, when you're talking with 20s and teens and stuff like that, what happens is they get caught up in the ugliness of the world and the concepts and the struggle and all that type of stuff. So, and just to change that simple frame and saying, okay, just put happiness on your agenda. That's all. And it doesn't mean you have to be happy. Make yourself happier every single day, because what will happen is you'll cumulative effect, and before you know it, you have a backdrop feeling of feeling good more often, more of the time. So it's not about I smile through everything. It's just one thing. So that if you wake up and you want to sort of murder the world, just make yourself a bit happier. Murder half the world. That type of idea. Do you get the idea? So it's just edging your way towards it, building it in. Actually, and from the science, it's habit stacking. Actually, so building it in a very subtle way, actually linking it into conditioned behavior and making it so that you can literally have the backdrop feeling. Remember, once you build in that level of happiness, and when we say happiness, really the emphasis is happier, happier, just better than you have been, and not, it doesn't have to be static. Emotions are transient, they're always in motion. So basically allowing yourself, as you arrive into your day, to say, I'm going to do one thing just to make myself happier today. And it can be a different thing or the same thing, who cares? But just every day that at least you put on your agenda. And the really trick in this is you put on your agenda first thing in the morning. We know from the research it sets up your day. So if you do, it's just like fitness or exercise or meditation, and like that. When you do it, the military got that right. They understood that, once you do something in the morning, it tends to have an impact. If you get a small win, basically, and a small little thing of happiness. By the way, that happiness could be, Frosties or something for breakfast because you love Frosties or something, or M&M's. So, I don't care. But just something small, and it's that thing that can just make you smile a little bit. And basically just indulge in a moment of self-indulgence just for a moment, just to remind yourself that life is joyful. There's a whole heap of crap in it, but there's capacity to be able to feel good more often. Not all of the time, just more often. And the thing is that it is a skill, so work the skill. Don't let anyone else tell you how to do it. Just find ways of doing it. Make it individual and personal to yourself. So You know what makes yourself happy. You know the little things in life. You know, it's the idea of like, if you like pizza, eat your pizza for breakfast or something. You know, they say give yourself that treat. Whatever it is, just a small little thing that will tweak it. It could be listening to your favorite tune or sound, even if it's only for 15 seconds. Once you do that, at least then you go through your day and say, you know what, I done something for me today that made me feel good. It reminded me that I'm supposed to literally enjoy life, that's an ability that we have. Remember, you're alive. The least thing you could do for yourself is make sure that you enjoy some of it. Not all of it, some of it. There's enough crap. You'll have enough challenges. You'll have enough, hassle and resistance and restriction and impositions. Just a piece. Even if you got 2 minutes happiness in one day, if you worked on that for the rest of your life, you'd end up just feeling good more often.
Absolutely. I totally buy into that, because I think if you set up your day with a little bit of happiness, it makes a massive impact to the rest of your day. And I've noticed it myself. And some days I get stuck into that little loop and go, what can I do to get myself out of this loop? There's something not right here. So I sometimes take myself off and have a laugh at life. Or watch a YouTube clip. I love Jimmy Carr, and he makes me laugh every time because he just has that bit of smut in there, but it's just so humorous. What do you do to get yourself back into that space? How do you get yourself back into that space very quickly?
I'm very intolerant with bad moods. As I always have been. So, I can't even listen to myself moan. So basically, if I hear myself moan, it's, oh, for fuck's sake. That's my immediate response to that. So straight away is that I will change and I will snap out of it, deliberately snap out of it. I just don't like it. I don't like the feeling of it. And how I do it generally is by doing. I do something. Basically, I act on something. So that is, it may be, picking up a book or whatever. It may be exactly what you said, like looking at a clip or whatever. It's movement of some description. I move out of wherever I am in that state. So if I'm in the bad mood, basically, and I'm in the sitting room or something like that, I move out of the sitting room to go somewhere else to get a physical move in the body, because I know that once you move the body, you move the neurons. Yeah. So, and really what it is just kind of the simple version of shaking yourself out of it, that type of idea, but creating movement, because once we go still, once we go static, I see, and we're in that bad spiral, what happens is the brain keeps moving, I see, and we're in a lock state. And what happens is then we go down to the tunnel. What we want to do is just get out of it as quick as possible, move, energize, activate, do exercise, do anything that causes any type of energy. That's what I tend to do. And that will ground me back into my body and out of my head. The head is the biggest problem, as you know. So the thing is, when you're not thinking well, or when you're not feeling as good, it's get into a physical activity, something that moves your body, especially, and if that's dance or whatever, or screaming, or whatever, or stretching, anything like that. I will often, before a seminar, if I get a little bit wound up, I will deliberately stretch, and basically, and I will pull all the muscles type of thing to get them to go into that outward movement, because what they'll tend to do is contract. Basically, when you pull them back out, bang, you start to release and loosen again. Basically, just doing something rather than trying to have a mental technique, have a physical technique. It just is quicker, it's faster, because we're not thinking well at that point.
I tend to do some star jumps.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you probably laugh while you do them as well. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I time myself and I say I'm going to do 30 star jumps before I do a webinar or something like that. Raises the endorphins, just makes me feel good. I've got my heart pumping, and I feel really good inside when I actually do that. So I'm delighted with that. So look, I know your time is very precious, and I'm delighted to have you on today. And it's been wonderful, and so looked forward to having this ever since I've asked you to do it. So, and you've given a wealth of good knowledge, and what I like is you're very much down to earth, and I love that. I look for in people is a lot of authenticity. I know that word's been bounced around a lot, but I'm just looking for people that I can connect with, and I've always connected with you. Well, I know you're very humorous in your delivery, and a bit of banter backwards and forwards, but I love that. I always take that on board, so I absolutely love that. So Brian, I know up there above your head there is a lot of stuff about yourself, briancolbert.ie or .com, I can't remember, and the Irish Institute.
Yeah, NLP.ie is really the place to go. Basically you can get briancolbert.ie or NLP.ie. It's all there.
So you've got up and coming courses over September, October, November, have you? Or have you got anything else planning?
Yeah, we're going to go back into the public training again. As you know, we do a lot of online stuff as well.
Yeah.
I would do the online coaching as well. But ultimately, we're going to start doing the NLP practitioner, business practitioner, master practitioner coaching program. That's all going to start. It's going to start in October, the beginning of October, 5th to the 10th is the first segment. So we'll get it all PPE approved and certified and all that stuff. And the good news is that it'll be a lot more personalized, because we'll have less people, so we'll have more time with each person, which is a good thing. So for what we lose out on the bigger group, we'll improve on the fact of more one-to-one time in that way. So it's going to be a lot more productive for people, a lot more effective for people, and it is limited. It just has to be, because it's nature. We're as well.
Up to 15 people, so I think.
Is that what they're saying? Yeah, we were looking at 12.
So.
Yeah. Is it
15? I think it's 15, and then, but that's wonderful. I highly recommend anyone to do that. And if you want to reach out to Brian, he's all over social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can connect at the Irish Institute of NLP.ie, and I highly recommend it. And thank you very much for your time, Brian. You've been wonderful.
Always good to talk to you, Jason. Thank you. Take
Cheers.
it easy. Look after yourself. See you then. Bye now.